Okay, call the meeting of the Finance and Human Resource
Yeah.
Committee meeting. Yeah, we don't look like we've got enough here, but.
4 out of 7. Yep,
Yep.
we're good.
All right, but can we, roll call?
Trix Luby? She's absent. Ermeling?
Here.
Barr? He's absent. Hackberg? She's excused. Maloney?
Here.
Now.
Here.
Olson?
Here.
Okay. Roll call.
Just did it.
I just did it. Yes, I didn't check it off. That's why. Any public comments? Why? Minutes from previous meeting of March 17th. What's your pleasure?
Move approval.
Motion by Steve,
I'll second.
second by Mark. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Acknowledge work products transmittals. I tried that last time. March budget status report. Do we have any
Move to
questions
acknowledge.
or comments? Okay, motion by Mark,
I'll second that.
second by Steve. On the question,
Song, I like that you're changing up the graphs to keep us like intrigued.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. TIF 1 and 2 detail reports for March. Any questions, concerns?
These are all acknowledges, right?
Yep.
Okay, I'll acknowledge 6 and 7.
Okay, motion by Mark to acknowledge 6 and 7. Do I have a second? By Brent. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, educational presentations and report. None there. Old business. Employee personnel policies and procedures handbook. Reestablish bookmarks. That has been completed. Update address information. That has been completed, and other grammatical items.
Reading through the packet, the grammar, it's like it is done. The grammatical, there, that sounds better.
Yeah.
But I mean, isn't it done? Why isn't it not checked off?
I just don't have it. There are the 63 references that would
Yeah,
be
to finance and
resources.
HR,
I just need to change to finance
Oh,
and
okay,
and
okay.
human resources. So a lot of them are done. I don't know that all 63 are.
But we've
quite-
identified them all.
Yes,
right?
they are
Okay.
all identified.
Good, okay.
I just didn't, because it would come to this committee because the committees were combined. It doesn't change the premise where those items are.
Okay,
Right. Okay,
so is that also part, no, that's not part of the dress code, right?
No,
Okay, got it. Okay.
okay, should we have a motion to approve or just acknowledge?
just acknowledge.
Okay.
I still have questions regarding the cell phone stuff. Am I correct here by reading that we're increasing it, or am I in the wrong section?
Where is the cell phone? Yeah,
That's in chapter 10, when we get to chapter 10.
so that's number 9?
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
That's later, yep.
okay.
Yeah. So motion to acknowledge,
I think Steve or Brent?
Brent. Do I have a second?
I knew if I waited long enough, Steve would do it.
On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Discussion and or action on amendments to chapter 10, employee conduct and behavior of the employee personal policies and procedures handbook. What's your pleasure?
So I had a question as well. So I know the conversation we had last time was looking at the need of the cell phone stipend, and depending on department, there definitely is a need. There's some where there may not be a need. But my question is the yellow highlighted part where it says potential different option regarding stipend amount would be to consider the addition of $1,200 to position compensation one time across the salary matrix. So this would eliminate the need for stipend reimbursement. So if we did that, are you suggesting that we would just take away cell phone reimbursements village-wide? Or are you saying that people who their cell phone isn't really essential to their job after hours, we would give them a one-time pay bump?
So I guess my thought with that is, I don't know that there is a position that it wouldn't be essential to any longer, just because of the way that we communicate with each other. But this was just another idea that it could be another option since it was discussed last time. I guess I would also point out that both of these fall within chapter 10. What brought up chapter 10 was really the appearance policy, which is totally revised. But when looking at that, there was several things that needed to be corrected in chapter 10. And so just by coincidence, that came up because of zero-based budgeting, not because of the policy at the last meeting. And that it was just thought of as a potential different option, but it would be across the board if it would be given that one time. I think there's mixed feelings on that just because if we do that, how do we separate that within the matrix to really represent that long term? But there's also then you don't have that continuous need to be tracking that reimbursement and providing that reimbursement. Just wanted to throw it out for committee consideration.
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm, because like, if we did, some departments definitely need their phone, some don't. We do the 1,200 just to the departments that don't get the cell phone, then would we run into a compression issue with other positions in other departments? The second thing is, I guess, if we don't pay for part of their phone, does that complicate open record stuff? Because obviously if we're communicating village business on our personal phones, or would that just stop altogether if we went this route?
It doesn't complicate it because the way that the policy is written and the form it signs off on, if you accept the stipend, you accept that we can utilize your phone,
Okay.
whether or not there is personal information on it.
Okay, and I guess my last comment then is, because this came up as a result of the zero-based budgeting, but I still would like to see some differentiation there, because again, like talking about Michael's team, they use their phones all day, every day for village business. And not to pick on the treasurer's department, it's just the only one we've looked at so far. I just don't know that I can see, unless it's something I need to be educated on, how everybody in the treasurer's office would need to have their phone, would answer it in the middle of the night, there'd be some sort of emergency. Now, maybe the treasurer herself, but everybody within the department. So I don't look at that as equal, and I don't know that it's necessarily fair to the people who are using their plans, especially if they don't have unlimited plans. They're paying a whole lot more for their data and their minutes. So I think if we're not, comfortable with, a recommendation of looking at the position and determining the need and only giving it to those that have the need, well, then I think we need to look at the equity between it. Because if I'm on Mike's team, I'm using my data and phone all day long. If I'm on somebody else's team, I might use it once a month, but I'm getting paid the same. So that's where I fall. So I don't necessarily have a really strong opinion either way on this. Super helpful, I know, right? But I think if we're gonna do it as it is, I think it needs to be position-based, determined based on need. And if we're gonna not, if we're gonna keep it as it is, we also then need to look at equity. Because I don't think everybody's using their phone to the same degree, and every cell phone plan is different. And $50 doesn't buy you anything for a cell phone nowadays. So I think if we leave it this way, then we maybe need to look at or examine some departments may need more than $50 a month. Because again, I've priced cell phones for an entire organization. It's not cheap. So, no matter how we look at this, if we're not issuing phones village-wide, we're saving significant money. But I just think there's an equity issue there if we leave it as it is.
Steve?
I have similar questions regarding it. I'm not completely in favor, because I don't think we can address the records retention requirements. I believe the state requires 7 years of retention for business records. So how do we keep track of that? I'm not aware of software for cell phones that are keeping track of who's texting, who's sending stuff by text. And how, if those records can't be maintained, then how do you provide those or verify that they're being provided? I mean, you don't have to look really hard about what happened. And I brought this up the last time over in Marshfield with the mayor, where he was referred to the DA and ended up being kicked out by the council, or the individual up in Rhinelander. I mean, I think it took 2-3 years for his records or his charges against him to be released. I'm just saying that we have a can of worms here, and I come from a banking environment where the bank funded the phones for the people because it's confidential information that's being sent, and you kept it on that phone. It was the bank's phone that can be turned off in a second, So I'm not a fan of having the phones or that liability with the employees. I'm just not.
So to Steve's point, you know, so if we do the stipend, the $100 and it's a personal phone, so it's, I'm on somebody's team. And the 7-year requirement, year 2, I decided to get a different phone. I change my number, I do all kinds of stuff because it's in my control. I'm just getting a stipend from the village.
Hmm.
So now, where's my track record?
See, emails get
You know?
recorded every day, right?
But I mean, there's some things, some components that are not gonna follow.
So is the village then
You're right.
keeping your phone for 7 years
Right.
and you're not getting the trade-in value?
It-
Like, say
Exactly.
you get an open records request on a specific issue, are you checking every single phone to know who had conversations with that? I mean, personally, like I said, I know it's expensive to do it from the village side, but I also think if we did it from the village side, we'd probably be very more intentional with who we assign phones to. And I agree, the open record stuff, as I used to manage that at a prior employer. That's difficult, and like, if you don't provide it, like, there's really not a lot of the law there that allows for, oops, I made a mistake, like, no, we're expected to be 100% able to provide all those records.
I don't feel whether you give me money or not will prevent me from using my phone. I'm gonna have open records. You're gonna, your whole conversation is going on open records. People are gonna use their phone. They're gonna use their phone for work. So whether they're getting paid or not, it's probably gonna happen. Right now, the streets are using their phone for work, receiving a smaller stipend even. I mean, you can go into liability and legal, but we already went through this with Attorney Edie. It was not that long ago. I think you were on the board, Mark was on the board, Barry was on the board. We went through this, so I'm not sure why we're
We
rehashing
decided
this,
that,
or-
we decided to do it. Yeah,
We,
you're right.
we did, so I'm not sure why we're looking at this, especially the legal portion. Again, the staff has decided to take the risk.
Yeah, but the staff decided to take the risk because they're getting a benefit. I understand that, but I mean, sometimes you gotta look at what the risk is overall. All you need is somebody to start questioning things. I believe up in Rhineland, there was a newspaper or whatever that started questioning it, and they weren't able to produce the records or answer it. And then I think his mugshot is still on the internet. So my point is that if you have your individual phones that the village are providing to the employees, you step away from all of that.
Then the police, they're able to go back and get the records. Texts are not phone specific. They might be phone number specific, but they're not phone specific. So I can get a new phone in my text.
By reimbursing the employees, they're the owner of those records. We have no control over Spectrum or Cellcom or whatever, because we're compensating the employee. If the employee doesn't provide it, there's nothing that can be done.
But by signing that letter,
I'm just saying that.
like, you know, I'm just
Yeah,
wondering
worms.
what.
Yeah, it is.
It is probably Ken,
Yeah.
yeah, and Michael's.
Michael?
Yeah, I'll just say, I know to Jessica's point here, when we talked with Attorney Edie on this the last time around, it doesn't matter if it's the village phone. If I have 2 phones sitting here and I accidentally get a text from a contractor on a village project and I respond to it on my personal phone is now an open record. Like, so whether I have my own village phone or not, if I have 2 phones and 3 years from now, somebody says, hey, I want to see every text between you and Integrity Grading out on Weston Avenue, they can request either one of my phones if I used either one of my phones. So I think some of that is, you're also then telling the employees that you cannot use your personal phone for anything. And I don't know.
What's wrong with that? Like,
I've worked
I
for
guess
organizations where
nothing.
that was policy, where if you used your phone for open records.
So if that's.
I mean, we don't let our employees come in with their own laptop, do we?
No, we don't, but like, so then I'm just saying, if we're trying to be cost conscious. We've got 16+ people on a public works staff that are gonna say, okay, I need a phone then, so you can get a hold of me after hours, so you can get a hold of me in the field. Contractors, plumbers call them at all hours. So I don't think there's, I mean, if something truly went down, you can ask AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint, whoever it may be. And you can They will have to provide that same information, is my understanding.
No, actually, they don't.
They don't?
Most of them don't even retain that information because they don't want to get involved in that game.
Sure.
And the village would have no way to compel that because it's the individual employee. To Jessica's point about the police being able to, so there's a little bit of a fallacy there. Most times we can get things back off of a phone. The equipment and the software to do that is tens of thousands of dollars and requires constant upkeep. And significant training to operate it. So I don't know, we want to rely back on that. I don't know that Mountain Bay has that technology. Even if they did, I doubt they'd want to do that as a matter of routine. So like, again, I think there's a way to do this. I don't have it in my mind at this moment what it is, but I just think, and obviously we're getting down a hole here because this wasn't the purpose, like Jamie said, of this whole update here. So maybe we can separate this issue off for our next meeting to kind of discuss it and maybe come up with another plan. It's really easy to say we don't like what's there, but if you don't have a suggestion on how to fix it, we're not really helping anything. But I don't like how it works. I don't know that every employee needs a phone in the village. I would also ask, are all the calls we're taking after hours things we have to do after hours, or could they be done during the business day? Again, that's going to be department specific, right? So I just think we can be more intentional about it without just blanket, here's money, and kind of wait till, like Steve said, something bad happens and then we're in a bind. So,
I think like your street water
Mhm.
utility where they do get called out.
yep,
You know,
absolutely.
but there again, staff is, well, administrator definitely, because she gets 24/7. But I look at like the treasurers, the clerks, well, building inspector, I don't know, I'm not gonna go through. But I think we can look at who actually needs to get the step for what they do. Once in a while, a phone call that you take, I don't think calls to be reimbursed. I mean, I get calls.
That's a great idea. I think maybe we start with a needs analysis and then try to figure out what a plan would be.
Yeah.
Because I think we're trying to solve a problem we haven't yet identified.
Right.
Should we defer?
Defer it to next time and do
Defer.
some sort of a needs analysis basis and start looking at it from that perspective. So then we're making intentional informed choices versus just kind of harsh ones.
Okay, motion
Do
by
you
Brett.
want to defer all of chapter 10?
No, I would just, my motion would be to defer this little piece. Because the rest of it is, again, a completely separate issue that just kind of got unintentionally combined. So I
So
would,
do you need a motion to accept 10, but not this portion?
If that's what the committee would like, yes.
okay, so I'll make a motion to accept chapter 10 without this portion, with the caveat that we bring this back to that portion back to the next meeting and start looking at a needs analysis.
I would second that. I would also like to add that we should have discussions with the League of Municipalities as well as other communities to find out,
What they're doing?
so we don't try to recreate the wheel.
Good point.
All right, is that part of your motion?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll add that
You said-
to my motion.
Sure.
Then you had a second.
Yep. I second.
I have a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Discussion and action on method questions for annual employee survey.
So this got brought up last month about the potential of seeking a third-party provider to complete the survey. So I did ask through the Wisconsin City County Managers Association and was referred to the company, the Polco, that's in the packet, and did ask them for a proposal to administer a third-party survey. They use the National Employee Survey. There's also a draft of that included in the packet. And we could do an additional half page of questions to that national survey and then be benchmarked on other organizations that use the National Employee Survey. So the cost of that is $4,500. It's $4,500 every time you administer the National Employee Survey. So if we could be with them 2 or 3 years and maybe do smaller polls or questionnaires internally through their software, through their dashboard that they have. But every time you would do that national survey, at this moment, it's $4,500. So I did include their proposal in the packet. And again, I do think we could do this internally for really just staff time. I mean, I understand the benefit of the ranking nationally. I just wanted to have the conversation with the committee on the cost of that.
The committee asked for it?
Yeah,
I guess I didn't get
another
that.
member who's
Third
not here
party.
tonight asked for it. So first of all, thank you for the work on this. I know these are not fun things to reach out to vendors for quotes and then they never leave you alone again until you sign up. But I would be an advocate of this, not so much for the national stats. But I think about $4,500. I know we said every 2 years. I think we should do it annually. Because I think if you really look at what do we cost in marketing new positions, hiring, retention, all those things, $4,500 is nothing. And I look at it as a preventative tool that maybe we could save money on losing an employee because of something that this survey identified in culture or something like that. I know it's easy to say we should spend money, but I truly believe this is a $4,500 investment once a year that we would get back in other costs by maintaining good employees, getting the best talent, being known for having a good culture. People want to come to us versus us having to find them. So I think this looked great. I love the questions. I thought it was a good tool.
Did we get any, well, no, just was reading, I remember that other one. Gallup Services, I had to look to find the name of it. You didn't do any checking what their prices or what they do, or
No,
was this one just recommended or
This
what?
one was recommended through the Wisconsin City County Managers Association. There are other municipalities, larger municipalities that have utilized them. They're also Wisconsin based. They're based here in Madison. I would assume Gallup is more just because it's a national entity. So I kind of wanted to see where we felt about the $4,500 before.
That would be 1 year per year?
It would be per time you administer the National Employee Survey.
So my suggestion was once a year for the $4,500.
So that would be 4,500.
Yes, yep,
For all employees.
But
yes.
it's a 2-year
Okay.
contract, so that 4,500 is held for 2 years.
It's held for, yes, but.
So $9,000.
Okay.
But if you wanted to do the National Employee Survey, that survey questionnaire again next year, it would be another $4,500. Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted to make sure that included all employees and it, that was just the price.
Yeah.
Added or whatever.
What their poll call is really saying is that you could probably do it every 2 to 3 years, and then if you wanted to do smaller surveys, but they just wouldn't have the national benchmark comparison to them.
And this would be the under 40 staff, right? I mean, we don't have 40. I mean, this isn't
We have, like-
police, this isn't fire.
No, it is not
But
safe for.
Water utility,
Yes.
everything, so.
Yeah.
30, whatever.
It's 38, I think 38 or 39 full-time.
Well, I guess my question is, what do you, how do you feel that we can do this internally or that this would be something we could maybe do every once in a while? And do our own in between, or I guess I'm kind of,
I mean, going back to the conversation last week, I could argue both ways. I do think you have hesitancy to be completely honest if you're knowing that somebody might know what you wrote. I'd like to think we're past that as a society in 2025, but I don't think we
I
are.
don't think so.
You know, especially like this section here that talks about supervisor. If 2 or 3 people are struggling with their supervisor, are they gonna come to the department head or to Jamie? Or are they more likely to identify it for us and the trend, looking at the trend, right? There's always gonna be someone that hates their boss. But like looking for those trends, is there 3 or 4 people who have an issue with a specific supervisor? I think the anonymity is huge. Again, I don't think the government benchmarks is needed. I don't know if we can price that out of this. But I just look at this list of questions. And every single one of them on here could be a target thing for us to look at as far as like if our culture needs help. So, are we treating everybody fairly? Are we communicating well? Are we posting job descriptions well? Like every single one on these is like an action item, for my opinion, for this committee from the human resources aspect. So, I don't know. I see the value. I think this is not an unreasonable cost.
I support that.
Okay, so, what is your recommendation?
I have one more question. Is there a possibility of doing this without the national benchmarks? Like, is there a quote for that? Like, if we don't want the national and we just want them to be our data hub, could we even do it cheaper than 4,500?
I don't believe so, because I think the National Employee Survey is something that they're contracting with, so I think it's I wouldn't say they're totally passing the cost on. I would assume there's some administration of that in that. But I think we would still have access to their dashboard and could do other surveys, but if we do it with those questions, those are developed by the National Employee Survey.
And then they have like a newcomer, a teaser rate. 4,500 is the teaser rate.
I think that is, cause the
You had
quote
verbal
says like
conversations?
80.
Did you have verbal conversations with them?
No, there's an actual proposal in that.
I know, but did you actually talk to somebody?
Yes, I did,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
But they have in here that it's 83,
I saw the 83.
and then they
Yeah.
crossed it out for the 45, so
yeah.
I would assume we are getting the new customer rate.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So then I would make a motion that we recommend the use of this POCO,
Do I have a second?
whatever you want to call it, each year annually for the Village of Weston.
Second.
I'll second it.
Okay.
I haven't heard from Steve yet, so maybe he'll talk now.
No, I agree. It's.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I have a motion to recommend proceeding with POCO for the administration of the NES at the cost of $4,500 to the Board of Trustees. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. And that would be for one.
Well, it's a 2-year contract. If we do it 2 times,
Yeah.
but we're gonna for sure do it once.
For sure do it
Yep.
once.
Okay.
Okay. So, zero budgeting, zero-based budgeting, clerk department.
As instructed by the committee, we are bringing forth department's budget from 2024, since we do not have any 2025 budget, since we don't have any 26 numbers in there. Purpose of this is to allow the committee to see what is actually in the departments.
We're doing one department or all?
We just have the clerk's department
yeah,
and
yeah,
the
that's what I
sections
thought, yeah.
that the
Treasurer
clerk
last,
is in
okay.
control of.
Got it. Mhm.
Okay, got any questions? Comments? Just kind of reviewing it and.
Mhm.
Well, one
Is
of the
it
reasons why I think
something
this is a great idea is because I've heard from a couple different trustees, well, don't we have money to cut somewhere? Can't we just find it in the budget? And what my purpose is to show you, like, in the clerk's department, this is what we budget for. There's not, I can't find like $5,000 to cut out of the clerk's department. The majority of the clerk's department is salaries and benefits. So we have some a little bit larger expenses in the elections, which are required. We're still trying to hammer out the postage. It was over budget a little bit. But we are trying to narrow that down and really see how many absentee ballots are coming in. Other than that, there's not a ton of,
I did hear from some election workers that they were treated like queens, that we might be feeding them too good. So and
Untrue.
they actually enjoyed coming to work because they have never been treated this nice. I'm not kidding. Well, I've told you that. I shared that with you. One of them was my neighbor. And I'm certainly kidding saying this, but she did say that. She felt like a queen coming to work here, and she's been at other places too. So.
Well, if I
anyway.
could make a comment on that.
Mhm.
So we do feed them lunch and dinner. And I've had the clerks network has shared a lot of the hourly rates that they pay the election workers, and ours are on the lower end. There are other municipalities with us on the lower end. But usually when I try to buy the lunches and dinners, I try to make it like $1.50
Yeah.
per person.
Oh, you don't have to defend this.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm just
Not at all.
making a comment because I
They
try to
work-
watch it and
They do, they were just so impressed,
It's a
so.
very unfun job in
Yep.
today's climate,
No
so.
a lot of responsibility too.
Yeah.
Very much so. Good.
Jessica, thank you for this again. Like you said, this might end up being a boring thing that we requested, that we don't really find anything that we're looking, which is also a great problem. I agree. As I'm going through this, I don't know what we would cut. So other than, not to bring up the phone issue again, depending how we look at that, but so yeah, I don't really have any questions. I just want to thank you again for doing this. I know it's not super fun to put all this together, but.
well, this is our budget work papers. Usually when I present to the board, there's so much that I believe that whether it's the committee or the board, they glaze over it because there's just too much information. So this is a really great opportunity to see what the department actually spends the funds on. In the future, one of the things that was thrown about was cutting the accounts, having a few less accounts. You could probably shave maybe $100, $200 if you combine accounts, because office supplies, you don't always spend your office supplies, but that year that you need it, then all of a sudden you're over. Postage is the same thing. Postage is going up, but how much do we mail? It's just a trick sometimes to get those numbers.
I know it's minuscule, but publication, you know, for the actual, you know, shouldn't everything just be on the internet now?
We have a lot of publication
Yeah, liquor
fees.
licenses,
What's that?
liquor license.
I know, but then you gotta
fees,
publish it in the, you know, the whatever.
We have to sign for the affidavits.
But does
and
it,
everything.
should that even, that's probably something we can't control here. It's gotta be changed.
Yeah, that's
statewide.
state law.
I mean, cause you know, when you think about it, I mean, who gets the paper news, you know? And I know you can look at it online, so that's probably the point, but I just
If you
don't
wanna pay
know.
for it.
Well, you should be able to just put it online yourself and be done. Yeah.
If I could make one more comment, and I know we're gonna talk about cell phones some other time, and I'm not rallying for the cell phone for the clerk's office, but just to keep in mind that when we do elections, like when staff goes over to the nursing homes and they need to call me for some reason, they call on their cell phones.
Right, yep.
On election day, when the election workers are, you know, like November was crazy, when they had questions, our election workers call on the cell phone. And that's how they get a hold of us in the office to ask questions. So just to keep that in mind, that there are some things that we do use the cell phones for.
And I know we used to years ago have, cause I remember I took it on cause I didn't have a cell phone then. You know, I was going to a conference and I got to take the phone for emergency reasons than anything else, but it was a village cell phone. It wasn't one I took home or used or whatever. It was just one in case, say like if they're, I don't know, that go to the nursing home, is that village staff or is that about the?
We usually have one village staff that goes with the two election inspectors.
Okay, you know, but I mean, that's a thought too, you know, where, you know, you hand them your phone or something. I don't know. I mean, just idle thoughts. You know, but.
Just to cut to your statement, I would not say condensing lines would be appropriate. I think that from a transparency perspective, it gets no better than this. Now, if there's like one or two lines that need to be whatever. But I just think from a transparency perspective, like, it'd be hard for someone to find issue with this. I think
That's true.
it's very clear.
Very clear.
Right.
Good.
Okay. Just, you wanna just do
I don't think you need any action.
No.
okay, I was just gonna say, motion to, you know, acknowledge or something.
Mhm.
Okay, so new business. AR write-offs.
Move to approve?
By Mark.
I'll second it.
Yes.
On the question. You look like you had a question.
Well, I'm curious, is ministry medical,
They're not here anymore. That was purchased by Marshfield and.
Military was St. Clair's, right? Yeah.
don't they still own all that land?
Yeah, but the personal property was in buildings.
And I think Marshfield was just bought out by Stanford Health.
Right, I know
think
that, but it
it's
just surprises me that.
It's just something that we are having a hard time collecting on. We try to send everything to SDC, the state collection agency, and sometimes we just don't have enough to do that. That one is, so when we do the write-off, that is taken out of the TIF, because the TIF originally got the personal property tax for that property. So it doesn't necessarily negatively affect the general fund, so that's the benefit of that.
This be completely eliminated because we don't have.
Yes, we are super excited because personal property tax has always been a bear to collect.
Right.
But yeah, this should be the last year of write-offs.
Okay, well, that's your pleasure. Oh, you did a
Motion
motion.
second, yeah,
Did I have a second? Oh, Brett?
by Steve.
Yeah, I knew Steve did, but I didn't
It
hear a
was Mark's
second.
motion, I think, and Steve
Okay,
seconded.
yes. Okay, when we talk, then I lose track of who did what. All right. On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Okay, discussion and action on amendments to chapter 2 administration of local government agency of the employee personal policy and procedures manual.
I
Okay,
move to approve based on the fact that the changes are all administrative in nature.
okay, motion. Very good. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the Finance and Human Resource Committee recommendation regarding the amendments to Chapter 2, Administration of Local Government Agency of the Employee Personnel Policy and Procedures Handbook. There was no changes. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Item 14, discussion and or action on adoption of section 2.11, local preferences in village purchases in the administration of local government agencies, chapter of the Employee Personal Policies and Procedures Handbook. Okay. What's your pleasure?
So if I understand correctly, we're just would be adding this, right? This
Mhm.
isn't changing or replacing anything.
It was discussed at board last month and referred for committee to put together a draft.
Is that a motion or no?
I'm happy to make the motion to recommend approval.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, motion by Fred, second by Mark on the question. My question is, this doesn't violate anything of having to do the less expensive?
No, because it does say that the purchase has to be within the constraints of the state and federal law, absent of any legal restrictions that would prevent the purchase. And it would not apply to any grant funded purchases because we have a grant procurement policy and that would supersede this policy.
Okay, well, that's, I just wanted to verify that we weren't getting into dangerous ground somewhere along the line. Okay, I have a recommendation to adopt section 2.11 local preference in the village purchases to chapter 2 of the Employee Personnel Policies Procedure Handbook to the Board of Trustees. What's your pleasure?
You made the motion.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, so,
But I had to repeat what the motion was.
okay.
Because he just made the motion, but he didn't read it into the record. Okay.
So we're doing 14, right? Okay,
Yes,
okay.
all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Yes. I'd like us to read it off.
Yeah.
So, discussion and or action on former policy on body camera usage by village staff. Okay, I received this request from one of our trustees. And I asked to have it put on the agenda for discussion. I guess, first of all, I figured out the building inspectors might wear them once in a while. I don't know if water utility or, I guess who wears body cameras besides police officers?
Just the building inspectors. The village owns 3 cameras, 3 body cameras, and they would be worn by the building inspector and property manager and our Scott and Travis and Roman.
And
Okay,
It was for code enforcement, basically,
right,
is when we got them.
okay.
I think one of the questions though is, how consistent are we on code enforcement? Is it, so every time we're doing code enforcement that we're wearing them? Or are we kind of picking and choosing? Because I think that's the big question. We've got to be consistent, we got to be fair. And so if we're gonna do it for one on an issue, then we got to do it for all on that issue.
They were using them when they had to actually confront or go on property.
Okay, always.
That was my understanding.
Okay, Steve.
how do we maintain those business records? How do we?
Once they return to the office, the image, the recording is put onto our server. So it's put onto the drive onto the server and then it's backed up nightly.
Is there any legal requirements or in the state of Wisconsin, is there some limits that you can only record?
Wisconsin is a one-party state.
Right. But if there's more than one person that he's conversing with, does that create problems?
No, no, not in, from my understanding, it does not in Wisconsin. It's a one-party state. Plus the camera is clearly wore, it would have a red light that would indicate that it's on. I mean, but it's wore on their chest. It's not kept someplace where it wouldn't be visible to the individual.
Okay, and how is this reviewed if there is? I mean, well, you said you put it on the server, so it's there. And if there is a question, then that is handled.
It's happened only one time that I think I know of. And we looked at the tape and we provided the tape.
Okay,
So it was basically, it was about a complaint on how they had responded to an issue and they had the tape there. So.
Jim, I just, Pensignal? Cause you brought this up and I want to know, are your questions answered?
It answered the question. If I was sitting at that table, I bet you'd have an hour discussion about it, but I'm not, so
Okay.
we don't need to have an hour discussion about it. Sounds
Okay.
like there is no actual real policy or procedure that's being followed. We just kind of fly by the seat of our pants and go on.
So do we have a policy on this in the handbook?
There is not a policy in the handbook. I did include in the RFC that staff also feel that a policy would be good to further put into place. I also put the history of why these body cameras were purchased. I do sometimes feel when there's emotional situations, things occur, right? So hindsight's 2020. We can certainly put in a policy. I've already reached out to Mountain Bay Metro and have got their policy. And I've reached out to the League of Municipalities and again, the Wisconsin City County Management Association to see if other communities have policies in place for theirs to see what potential examples would be. I think it's something that if this was the committee's desire, we could bring something back for a draft next month.
Would that suffice, Jim? And because this is kind of your subject, I'm asking you for your input, so isn't, okay?
So we would be looking for defer.
So-
Well, quick, I have something out there. So from a safety perspective, I think this is fantastic. We should absolutely do this. From a policy perspective, I think 100% there has to be a policy. Can't just be whenever an employee decides to turn it on, right? Because we ever get asked for a recording and we don't have it, they're gonna say, well, of course they didn't turn it on because they did this, and we have no way to refute that. That's just reality. But I also would like us to look at, besides the policy, is there a way to share this? And Chief Hunt might kill me for this, but is there a way to share this function with the police department and just get some additional cameras that are worn just by that staff? So we don't have to worry about multiple saving locations. A lot of the companies that do body cameras, they actually will back up your data for you versus, having to go through all those things in-house. There might be some cost savings there if we go that route, but then I'll defer to Chief Hunt, but I don't know why you wouldn't at least consider that.
Okay, sure. So can I have a motion to defer to the next month?
I'll defer.
Okay, motion by Mark,
Second.
Steve? On the question, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Okay, remarks from committee members, Brett?
Good.
Mark?
Good.
Nothing for me.
I have nothing. The next meeting will be May 19th at 4:30. Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
motion by Mark,
Second.
second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, so carried. We are adjourned at.
Good job.
We have several people that are joining us via the Zoom link. That was the end of the Finance and Human Resources Committee meeting. The board meeting is gonna start momentarily. We're just gonna be on mute until that board meeting begins.